Action. Take one, final take. Whatever happens, this is going out. I wanted to begin with just a little bit more of a comment on the distractions issue. I went for a walk afterwards and I thought, I don't have a very good answer for what to do about distractions. But here are 5 things I have found helpful. One is, when I'm praying, if I have pen and paper to hand, I find that's really useful. You know, if you're trying to focus and then you think, oh, I need to get such and such from the shops, or I need to phone such and such. Well, if you write it down, you can then just forget about it. Whereas if you're just trying to put it out of your mind, it won't go away. So pen and paper to hand is a help with distractions. Another thing that's generally recognized as helpful is having a straight back. So we want to be comfortable, but actually not too comfortable. So sometimes a sofa isn't the ideal unless it's fairly firm. I don't mean tense straight back, but you know, fairly straight. Actually, mine could do with being straighter, so I'm straightening. So a straight back usually means fewer distractions. Just having the attitude of, I'm going to do my best here. I'm going to try and focus. So if I'm distracted, I'm going to try and let that go. To notice and let it go is a help. Another thing I found helpful is to avoid a large meal before I try and meditate or pray in any way, because I'll just want to fall asleep. 2 o'clock in the afternoon after a big lunch is the worst time to try and do this. 4 isn't a bad time. For most people, the best time is the morning, perhaps before the busyness of the day, or maybe after the second cup of coffee. So if you're struggling to focus at 4 in the afternoon when it's warm outside, give it a go in the morning. And another thing that helps, a 5th thing on my list, is to find some way of coming to stillness that works for you, which might be visual, it might be having an image or looking at creation. It might be having music. It might be focusing on your breathing, which we're going to do today as our stillness. Find something that works for you. And that doesn't guarantee there'll be no distractions, but as I said yesterday, they worry us more than they worry God. So the main thing we're going to do today is prayer with the imagination. We've used the imagination a little bit already by letting God look at us. This is using it even more. And the next 2 days, we're going to be trying that with different content. So today we're going to be doing something called fantasy prayer, using a meditation written by an Indian Jesuit called Anthony de Mello. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of him. There is some nodding. He had a real genius for teaching ways of praying. The thing about imaginative prayer is, one, everyone has an imagination, but not every imagination works in the same way. So it might be that you can't really see the pictures in your mind's eye today. And if that's the case, don't worry about it. Continue to go with it. And it might be that in another way, you're present to the exercise. Imagination is a faculty everybody has. And when we offer it to God in our prayer, God is able to use it in a very imaginative way, a very creative way. It's a bit like a dance. You're there with your faculty of imagination. Also there, God's Holy Spirit is there. And the two of you are dancing. and you are not the lead dancer. You're not Anton Dubek here. You're Anne Widdecombe. So there's something about letting go of what's happening in the time of the prayer and just trusting that God is there and God can surprise us. That doesn't mean that we're credulous and that whatever happens, we say is from God. We look at it afterwards and we can ask that question that I think Lucy asked yesterday. How do we know if something is of God? And I'll say a little bit about that at the end. We know the Lord when we see him or when we experience him. Lightness of touch comes with good news. He liberates, he loves. These are signs of God's activity. But we don't worry about that while it's happening. We allow the dance to take us. So what is it we're going to be taking ourselves through imaginatively with God's Spirit? Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do, then we'll do it. And then, like a Methodist preacher, I'll tell you what we've done. It's called a statue meditation. Don't know if anyone's ever come across that. I've done it about 100 times. I'm looking forward to my 101st. This meditation, this fantasy prayer will involve us in our mind's eye going to a studio where somebody has created a statue of you. You will be going to look at a statue that has been made of you. Maybe it's a friend of yours who is the sculptor. And I can imagine what's happening inside you just now. Oh my God, no thanks. Go with it. It could be that it's naturalistic, or it could be that it's symbolic you. We might not know until we take the sheet off. And in imagination, you'll be removing the sheet. And then you will behold yourself in front of you. You'll notice the size and the shape and the material, and you won't know yet, but you'll know when you get there. After looking at your statue for a bit, you'll be invited to become your statue. I'll take you through into that step. And what's it like to be your statue? And then while you are your statue, Jesus is going to come into the room, the studio, because he wants to see your statue. And because this is fantasy prayer and God's clever, there can be conversations between statues and us as a statue and Jesus. We don't force it. We're not in control of this. All we can do is turn up and pray that God is with us. So, shall we go on a journey? So, without falling off your chair, and feel free to turn off your camera if you'll be more relaxed doing that as you wish. And just notice how you are this day. Notice how you are. And however you are, whether you feel ready for this or not, let God, who loves you, look at you or be with you. And as God looks at you or is with you, breathe in God's love for you. Breathe God's love into your body. And notice how your body is as you do that. Notice if you're carrying any tension anywhere, in your back or shoulders, in your face, anywhere. And if you are, as you breathe out, breathe some of that out. Give it to God and relax in God. Keep breathing in God's love. Breathe out any tension. And don't worry if there's still a bit of tension. It's normal for us. Perhaps you might notice a bit how you're feeling, what emotions there are in you. Whether you're feeling peaceful or anxious, focused or distracted, whatever you're feeling. And breathing in God's love, breathe out into God how you're feeling. Share that with God. And see if you can notice what's on your mind. It's hard to stop our thoughts, but we can notice them and share them with God. So breathing in God's love and breathe out into God whatever is in your mind. And if there's any particular concern, worry, then see if you can let go of it a little bit. Give it to God for this time of prayer. As you breathe out, let God have it. And take 3 deeper breaths, breathing in God's love and breathing out whatever you want to share with God or let go of for this time. Desire is very important in our prayer. Jesus often asks, "What do you want me to do for you?" So what's your answer to that question? What do you want from God, from Jesus in this prayer? And then, as well as we can, without trying too hard, we begin this fantasy prayer, this imaginative prayer. So a sculptor has been working on a statue of you. And she gives you the key to her studio, where your statue is ready, so that you can take all the time that you want to examine it before it goes on display. So imagine yourself in front of the door to the studio with the key in your hand. What kind of a door comes to your mind's eye? What surrounds it? And feel the weight of the key in your hand. And then put the key in the lock and turn it and open the door. And there in the middle of this room, covered by a cloth, is your statue. It might, in a way, take form as you spend time with it. It might need to decide on its shape, size. And so walk up to the statue and the cloth, and when you're ready, take the cloth off. And then letting it become what it is, size and shape and nature. Look at it. Take a step back. Take it in. Notice how the light is falling on it. And where is the light coming from? What's your first impression of your statue? Are you pleased or dissatisfied? Study all the details in your statue. How big is it? What material is it made of? Walk around it. And see it from different angles, the side, the back. Look at it from afar, maybe go to the edge of the room, the wall, and look at it. And then come close in and really study the details, get close. Touch the statue. Is it rough or smooth? cold or warm to the touch? What parts of the statue do you like? Are there parts of it you dislike? Now I want to invite you to speak to your statue. What do you want to say to it? What does the statue want to say in reply? And if there is a conversation taking place, let the dialogue continue as long as you or the statue have something to say in words or even without words. The next thing I invite you to do, if you can, is to step into your statue, to become your statue. So take your time, work out how you can do that, and then enter into it. And when you've managed to inhabit your statue, begin to notice what that is like. What's it like to be your statue? What's your existence like as your statue? So while you are your statue, the next thing that happens is that Jesus enters the room. He has come to see your statue too. So let Jesus come into the room. It's likely you don't see him clearly, and that's okay. That's very normal. Just let him be there, however he is. And let him look at you as your statue. How does he look at you? Let him do what you did and look at the details, different angles. How are you feeling as he looks at you? And perhaps he also wants to touch you as your statue. Let him do that. What does he say to you? And what do you reply? And continue the dialogue between yourselves as long as either Jesus or you have something to say.
Shortly, Jesus will be leaving the room. How does he take leave of you? And Jesus leaves the room. And you come out of your statue. You return to yourself before your statue. Looking at it once again. Has there been any change in your statue as you look? Do you notice any change in yourself? And now you will be leaving, so say goodbye to your statue. And cover it with the cloth. And leave the room and lock the door. And gently return to being in your room. And we finish this prayer, the statue prayer, by saying, "Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen." So I will give you opportunity to ask any questions or make any comments, with no obligation, of course. And we'll turn off the record when we do that. But you might want to leave it on for the moment, Father Chris. Just a few comments on that. If it did work for you to some extent and you were able to be there, whatever happened, so it can be worth trying it again and maybe spending longer where most was happening. especially if anything was surprising. It can be worth going back, doing what we call a repetition. If you found it just impossible to get into, don't worry at all. Pray as you can, not as you can't. But it might be worth giving it another go, maybe at a different time of day, maybe in the morning. With an exercise like that, and indeed with any kind of prayer, it can be helpful to write notes. If you have a journal, you could start a journal, just to write down what happened. And often seemingly insignificant occurrences can be more important than we realize. So let's say you felt disappointed that you couldn't see Jesus, or you couldn't have a conversation with him. That's not to be passed over. The disappointment in that case would show that there was a desire for an encounter. You have a desire for encounter in you. That can only be given by the Spirit. So the Spirit's at work even in disappointment or frustration. Or if you notice any interesting feelings or an interesting look Jesus gave you, or touch, it's really worth spending longer with those kinds of moments where God's doing something in you, around you. If this was a retreat involving spiritual direction, your director would be saying, right, what happened and what didn't happen, and what did you want to happen, and what did he say, and how did he say it, and how did he look at you, and what was he like? And maybe one day there'll be opportunity for that. And I just wanted to put something on the share screen, and it's another response to that question. How do we know if something is of God or not? Is it just in my own head? And just wanted to share with you just a little bit from the rules for discernment of Saint Ignatius. And here he's talking about consolation and how we can test whether something is from what he calls the good spirit or from God. And he says, the characteristic of the good spirit is to give courage and strength, consolations, tears. These are good tears of healing or liberation. Inspirations and quiet, making things easy, removing all obstacles, so that the person may move forward in doing good. So there's an inner effect and there's an outer effect. It makes us want to give of ourselves. He also says on spiritual consolation, it's when there's any interior movement used in the soul which leads her to become inflamed with the love of her Creator and Lord. Or when a person sheds tears which lead to the love of our Lord. Or wherever there is any increase of hope, faith, or we might say trust, and charity. To all interior happiness, we might say joy, which pulls and attracts to heavenly things and to the salvation of one's soul, leaving the soul quiet and at peace in her Creator and Lord. This is what Jesus the Consoler is doing. This is one of the ways we can test. There are some other tests. If something is surprising, that's often a sign that God is at work. And if something has a lightness of touch, that's very often a sign that this is a real encounter with God, with Jesus. It's amazing how many times people report Jesus having a bit of a glint in his eye, as if there's something funny that he's aware of and he's sharing the joke with you. That can often be a real sign that it's Jesus at work. So I don't know if anybody wants to
say anything about how that was for them. We haven't got long, and we'll stop the recording.
All right.